One day, I kept getting repeated calls from my parents. When I finally answered, they started yelling at me. I couldn't understand what my father was saying and felt utterly confused. After pressing them for an explanation, I found out they were upset about the amount of money I was supposedly sending. My sister, Ally, was sending $4,000 every month, but they believed I was only contributing a mere 50. 50? That's not true. I send $4,000 every single month. I protested. Don't lie, my father shot back. Ally is a model and earns more than you. She sends us $4,000 every month without fail. I'm really disappointed in you. Ally is so much smarter and more thoughtful. My mother chimed in as well. Her tone filled with criticism. Are you just living the high life alone and spending all your money on yourself? Why can't you be more like Ally? She sends us so much money out of her hard work. You don't care about us at all. As usual, my parents showed more leniency toward Ally, and I felt cornered by their accusations. I was left speechless, completely overwhelmed by sadness and confusion. Why would they think I was only sending 50 cents? Feeling disheartened, I decided to stop sending money altogether for a while. My name is Violet, and I'm a 28-year-old employee at a food processing company. There's a 5-year age gap between my younger sister Ally and me. Ally has always had the kind of beauty that turns heads. People would often stop and stare, captivated by her looks, and she received endless compliments. She's the prettiest child I've ever seen, adults would say. In contrast, I had an unremarkable appearance. People would often laugh when comparing us, saying, Violet is so plain. My parents believed Ally was destined to succeed as an actress or model, so they showered her with attention and adoration. But their treatment of me couldn't have been more different. Growing up, the disparity was glaring. While Ally always had new, trendy clothes, I wore hand-me-downs from neighbors. Ally took lessons in anything she showed interest in, but I was never offered the same opportunities. This favoritism turned Ally into an entitled and overbearing child. I don't have to share my things with you, Violet, she'd say, but I can use your things whenever I want. She'd take my cherished belongings one by one. When I complained, my parents always defended her. She's just a child, they'd say. Let it go, Violet. Even when Ally was clearly in the wrong. I was told to forgive her because I was the older sibling. My feelings were brushed aside, and I learned early on that my opinions didn't matter. By the time I reached upper elementary school, Ally decided she wanted her own room. Knowing how persistent she could be, my parents didn't hesitate. Violet, they said, you don't have much stuff. Move into the living room where the grandparents' portraits are. It's enough if you have a place to sleep. I reluctantly packed up my bedding and moved into the living room, where my late grandparents' photos were displayed. Both had passed away shortly after Ally was born, but unlike my parents, they had always cherished me deeply. It was my grandfather who had chosen my name. He loved violets and named me after the spring flowers blooming when I was born. When I was little, I would often sit on his lap, feeling warm and safe. Violet, he'd tell me, no matter how hard life gets, you can overcome it. After the struggles, happiness will bloom again, just like violets. Those memories came rushing back as I sat in the living room, surrounded by my grandparents' portraits. Despite the comfort I found in their memory, my parents' favoritism toward Ally never changed. And I never felt truly at home in my own family. As I grew older, I dreamed of becoming a school nurse and approached my parents about taking the university entrance exams to pursue that goal. However, their response crushed my aspirations. There's no way we can afford to send you to university. Get a job after high school, they said dismissively. Violet, you're the older sister. Think about Ally. We need to save money for her future, they added, making it clear that supporting Ally's dreams was their priority. Their lack of consideration left no room for me to even think about attending university. Yet, our family wasn't particularly poor. We were an average household financially. But when it came to choices between Ally and me, my parents always prioritized her, leaving me with the bare minimum. While I went straight to work after high school, Ally was sent to a prestigious university, fully supported by our parents. After graduating high school, I began working at a small company located 3 train stations away from home. At first, I had hoped to live at home and save money until I got married, but the suffocating favoritism made it impossible to stay. Feeling alienated and marginalized, I decided to move out. I found a reasonably priced studio apartment near my workplace and started living on my own. For the first time, I felt a sense of peace and comfort that I never experienced in my parents' home. Meanwhile, Ally, carrying all of my parents' hopes and expectations, remained at home. After graduating from her prestigious university, Ally's life seemed to flourish. She was scouted by a talent agency while shopping with friends and began working as a model. Our parents were overjoyed by Ally's success. Bragging about their daughter joining a talent agency became a daily ritual for them. I often heard them speak with pride about how well Ally was doing, which only deepened the distance I felt between us. One day, Ally called me out of the blue, sounding cheerful and enthusiastic. She wanted to talk about showing gratitude to our parents. "All that we've achieved is thanks to Mom and Dad," she said brightly. "From now on, we should repay them for everything they've done to raise us." Hearing her talk like this surprised me. Ally, who had always been self-centered, seemed to have matured. "I've been thinking," she continued, "what if we send them money every month? Maybe $4,000 would help them a lot." $4,000? I repeated, stunned by the amount. "Isn't that a bit much?" "Modeling pays well," Ally replied casually. "I think it would mean a lot to them. Imagine how surprised they'd be to receive that much money from us. I want to start this month." While I was taken aback by her suggestion, I had also heard from our parents that they were struggling with debt they said was incurred for our benefit. Feeling some responsibility, I decided to go along with Ally's plan. Despite my best efforts, I was struggling to make ends meet while trying to send $4,000 each month. My salary as an employee at a food processing company was only about $3,000. Even if I lived on a strict $1,000 budget, I would still be $2,000 short every month. To bridge the gap, I decided to take on a second job as a weekend security guard at a construction site. The pay was decent, but the work was physically grueling. In the summer, I endured sweltering heat, and in the winter, I braved the biting cold. Many times, I thought about quitting. Surprisingly, the people I worked with treated me kindly. They often brought me food and drinks, saying they admired how hard I was working. Their kindness helped me persevere. I also cut back on expenses by avoiding eating out and eliminating unnecessary spending. But even with all this effort, reaching $4,000 felt like an impossible goal. Desperate for a solution, I decided to earn a professional certification. I began devoting all my free time to studying, often sacrificing sleep. My days became a blur of work, study, and exhaustion as I pushed myself to earn more money. During this time, my parents called me repeatedly. I was so busy that I couldn't pick up right away, and they left several missed calls. When I finally returned their call, my father's angry voice greeted me. "You are horrible. What do you think of us?" he yelled the moment I said hello. I was completely confused. "What's wrong? Did something happen? Are you mocking us?" "What is this amount?" he demanded. "What do you mean? Are you talking about the money I've been sending?" I asked, baffled. "Do you know how much Ally sends us? $4,000. And you're sending just 50 cents? Are you mocking us?" His words were like a slap in the face. "That's impossible. I've been sending $4,000 every single month," I argued, shocked by his accusations. "Don't lie. Ally earns so much more than you from her modeling work. She's been sending us $4,000 every month without fail. I'm so disappointed in you, Violet. Ally is so much smarter and more thoughtful than you," my father said bitterly. My mother chimed in, adding to my pain. "Are you just enjoying your life alone and spending your money however you please? Why don't you learn from your sister? She sends us so much money and still works hard. You clearly don't care about us at all," she said with a deep sigh. I was utterly speechless, unable to comprehend what they were saying, overwhelmed with sadness. I couldn't find the words to defend myself. I remembered Ally's suggestion when we started sending money to our parents. Since it's from both of us, let's use the name Rainbow as the sender, she had said cheerfully. At the time, I didn't think much of it. What I didn't know was that Ally's stage name was Rain, and she had set up the account so that any smaller amount sent under my name would look like they came from Rainbow. Unbeknownst to me, Ally had been depositing $4,000 under her name while sending just 50 cents under mine. My parents, seeing the name Rainbow on both deposits, assumed the larger amount was hers and the insulting 50 cents was from me. Before I could explain, my father cut me off. "We don't need such a mocking amount of 50 cents from you," he shouted before hanging up. I stared at the phone in disbelief, tears welling up. Despite everything I had sacrificed to support my family, all they saw was a lie. After learning the truth about Ally's scheme, I felt a deep bitterness toward her for setting me up. That night, I couldn't sleep, my mind a mess of complex emotions. I wondered if I should continue sending money under these circumstances. To clear my thoughts, I decided to seek advice from my high school friend Na. Na was someone I had always trusted. She worked at a consulting firm and had been a capable, justice-driven person since our school days. Her blunt, honest opinions made her a reliable confidant. Luckily, her office was nearby, and we met for lunch during her break. "I was surprised when you said you needed to talk out of the blue. What's going on?" Na asked, her sharp eyes focused on me. "It's about my family," I replied, launching into the recent events. Na listened attentively, nodding occasionally. When I finished, she frowned. "Are your parents really struggling with money? They're still in their 50s, right?" she asked, clearly shocked by the $4,000 figure. "They said they have debts," I explained. "Apparently, it's money they spent on us, and Ally suggested we send them money as a way to show gratitude." Na raised her eyebrows, her surprise evident. "Money spent on both of you? But you didn't even go to university, did you? Isn't most of that debt from supporting Ally? And isn't your dad still working? There's no reason to send $4,000. It's ridiculous for them to suddenly need that much when they've been managing just fine before. If they think your contribution is only 50 cents, why not take their advice and stop sending anything at all?" Her words struck a chord. "You're too kind, Violet," she added firmly. "You shouldn't let yourself be pushed around." Na's advice resonated with me deeply. What was I to my family? I had spent my life doing whatever they asked, but I realized it was time to stand up for myself. 2 months later, my phone wouldn't stop ringing one morning. Frustrated by the persistence, I finally answered, and Ally's angry voice greeted me. "Why haven't you been answering all morning? And why did you stop sending money without telling me? What were you thinking?" she yelled. "I'm already overwhelmed with my own life." I shot back. Ally claimed that our parents were struggling because the $4,000 had stopped. But I knew better. That money wasn't about survival. It had become Ally's pride and enabled our parents' wasteful spending. Na had confirmed as much. Through her extensive network, she had discovered troubling details about my family's behavior. "I always suspected something was off," Na had told me. "I heard Ally spends a fortune on clothes and cosmetics." Her words stung, but they made sense. Anger welled up inside me as Na shared more. Ally had been boasting to her friends, "My big sister's my cash cow, so I rely on her money. Lately, it's been tough because she stopped sending it. I might have to cut back on facials and cosmetics for a while." That wasn't all. I learned that my mother had been buying luxury brand items while my father had stopped working altogether, spending his time gambling instead. It was absurd to think I had been supporting their indulgent lifestyles with my hard-earned money. Fed up, I confronted Ally. "Do you think I don't know? Dad is still working, so my money isn't needed, right?" I said firmly. Her silence told me everything I needed to know. For the first time in years, I felt like I was reclaiming control over my life. A week later, everything became clear. My parents came to me directly after the $4,000 payments had stopped. Apparently, Ally had finally confessed the truth when they confronted her. Through tears, she admitted, "I can't afford to send that kind of money." For years, Ally had been pretending to earn a high income as a model. But in reality, her career was far from glamorous. She rarely had work, and when she did, it was for low-paying jobs like modeling for inexpensive online catalogs. Despite her good looks, she lacked the singing, dancing, or standout talents needed to thrive in the competitive entertainment industry. Ally's struggles had been hidden behind a facade, and now, her lies were exposed. Our parents were furious, not at Ally,
but at me.
"We've been strict with Ally," they said. "You don't need to worry about her anymore. Just continue sending money as before." There was no apology for accusing me of lying, no acknowledgement of the sacrifices I had made. Instead, they brazenly demanded the 2 months of payments I had missed. "We've prepared for 2 months, so please deposit it when you can." My father added, "You're reliable after all." Their entitlement was staggering. I decided to confront them. "I heard from Ally that there was some debt. Is that true?" "Debt? Of course not," my father said with confidence. "We paid for Ally's tuition using your grandparents' inheritance." It became clear that Ally's claims about our parents struggling with debt were completely false. "We just need a bit more for shopping since your father's salary isn't enough," my mother said casually, as though asking for a small favor. Their casual attitude made my blood boil. They didn't need my money. They wanted it for luxuries, not necessities. Father's income should be enough. Besides, why doesn't Ally get a full-time job somewhere? I said firmly. My father's expression darkened. "Is that how you talk to your parents?" "I didn't raise a daughter to act like this." "We don't need a daughter like you," my mother snapped, her voice cold and cutting. Their displeasure turned into something even more shocking. "If you're going to be like that, we'll just use the savings your grandfather left for you. You're no longer part of this family." Their words left me stunned. My grandfather, who had cherished me, had left me an inheritance as a gesture of love and support.
Now,
my parents were threatening to take it away. "Do as you like," I said, my voice shaking but resolute. "But don't contact me again." As they left, their anger written all over their faces.
I felttidsbildet my cheeks.
What was I to my family? A convenient source of income? A scapegoat for their frustrations? The realization was devastating. For years, I had tried to earn their love and approval, but it had always been conditional. As painful as it was, I knew that cutting ties was the only way to reclaim my life. 2 months later, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. When I opened it, I was surprised to see my parents and Allies standing there. I thought I'd never see them again, but there they were, looking noticeably worn down. Their poor appearance puzzled me, and I hesitated before reluctantly opening the door. They, too, were surprised by how I looked. "What's with that look?" they asked, staring at me in disbelief. It was clear they hadn't expected to find me looking so put together. I had worked hard over the past 2 months, earning a small business consultant certification and securing a better-paying job, thanks to Na's introduction. My efforts had paid off. I had become more confident, and my style reflected that change. "I've been leading a fulfilling life," I explained calmly. "I'm now a team leader at my company. It's a bit far, so I'm planning to move to an apartment closer to work." My parents and Ally, however, ignored my progress entirely. "Before you indulge in such luxuries, give us some money," they demanded. "Are you planning to abandon your struggling family? Just lend us some money," they pleaded, their tone urgent. I was disgusted. As soon as they realized my income had improved, they shamelessly started demanding money. "With Dad's and Ally's income, you should already be living comfortably," I said pointedly. The truth was, Ally wasn't earning anything substantial. The modeling industry was harsh, and her once radiant appearance had faded. "What do you know, big sister?" Ally said, her voice trembling as tears welled in her eyes. It turned out that Ally, desperate to reignite her career, had been scouted by another talent agency that claimed she had potential as an actress. Believing this was her big break, she borrowed money from our parents to join the agency. However, the agency required a significant upfront payment. Their father had even used his early retirement severance pay to cover the costs. But it had all been a scam. Once the money was paid, the agency disappeared without a trace. And no formal contract had ever been signed. I was dumbfounded by their reckless behavior. Before coming to me, "Go to the police," I said firmly. As if on cue, a representative from a consumer finance company arrived at the door. "Are you family?" they asked, looking between me and my parents. It turned out my parents and Ally had borrowed a large amount of money, gambling on Ally's acting career as their way to hit the jackpot. On top of that, Ally had been spending lavishly at nightclubs to relieve stress, digging them further into debt. Now they were completely out of money. Despite having nothing left, my parents had clung to their unrealistic dreams and gambling habits, which left them with absolutely nothing. I was utterly dismayed. How could they think I'd step in to clean up their mess? Turning to the finance representative, I said firmly, "I don't know these people at all. I have nothing to do with them." Without looking back, I walked away, leaving my parents, Ally, and their chaos behind. After my parents declared bankruptcy, their debts were temporarily wiped out. They sold the family home and moved into a small, rundown apartment. Both of them found temporary jobs through an agency, managing to scrape by. Interestingly, my father was assigned to a construction site, the same one where I used to work part-time. "I'll be in your care starting today," he said awkwardly, introducing himself. It's the old man. "Help me out," one of the workers replied. Then, as if reminiscing, he added, "There used to be a young lady here before, but she quit. She worked hard to send money to her parents. I'd like to see the faces of the parents who made their daughter work a job like this." My father's face stiffened as the words hit him. As for Ally, she gave up on modeling entirely and entered nightlife work. However, her self-centered personality quickly made her unpopular with customers. She was fired from multiple nightclubs and lounges before finally settling at a small bar where she earned just enough to get by. Her once stunning appearance had changed drastically due to heavy drinking. Among the bar's regulars, the idea that Ally was ever a model seemed laughable. "A model? Who are you kidding? Look in the mirror," they mocked her, pointing out how much her body and face had deteriorated. I had cut all ties with my parents and Ally, and since then, my life had flourished. 5 years later, I found myself at Na's wedding. The ceremony was held in a beautiful seaside chapel in Miami. The bright blue sky and endless ocean stretched out before us, creating a serene and open atmosphere. Na stood at the altar, glowing with happiness. Beside her was her husband, a kind-looking man with a solid build, smiling warmly at her. Their love was evident, and she was now expecting their first child. Na had always been focused on her career, but she had found love with a colleague, someone who supported her ambition and independence. "I achieve everything I want on my own," Na said with a radiant smile. "And I quickly discard what I don't need. Violet, you should also face your feelings." Her husband laughed beside her, adding jokingly, "Just don't throw me away, okay?" I smiled back, my heart full of gratitude. "I'm really grateful to you, Na. Be happy," I said, offering her my sincerest congratulations. Na's wedding was a beautiful, joyful occasion. As I celebrated her happiness, I felt a deep sense of peace. This was the life I had worked so hard to build, a life free of the burdens my family had placed on me. For the first time, I was living fully on my own terms. As Na's wedding celebration was winding down, a man suddenly arrived at the venue, slightly out of breath. He was introduced as a friend of the bride and groom. "This is Nicholas. Though everyone calls him Nick," Na said with a smile. Nick was tall, well-built, and had an incredibly charming smile. When he laughed, it was impossible not to join in. His joy was infectious. Na leaned toward me with a mischievous grin. "I wanted to introduce Nick to you, Violet. You two are practically the same person, personality-wise." Her laughter was so lighthearted that both Nick and I couldn't help but laugh along. As the evening continued, Nick and I started chatting. The conversation flowed effortlessly, and by the end of it, we decided to meet up for a meal together sometime soon. For the first time in a long while, I felt a warmth blossoming inside me. It's like violets are blooming within me, I thought with a smile. Looking out over the beautiful Miami skyline, I felt a renewed sense of excitement for the future. I was ready to embrace life fully, balancing work, love, and happiness on my terms. Grandpa, I whispered in my heart, please keep watching over me from the sky. I'll make sure to bloom into the person you always believed I could be.